Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So, I mentioned this in a previous video, but I was reading Hush My Darling by Leigh Kenny. I just finished it, and we're going to chat about it. We're going to be doing a whole deep dive review on this book. I had never heard of Leigh Kenny before. I did get this really stunning edition. Well, it's actually quite terrifying if I'm being honest. I did get this very, very absolutely terrifying copy in my recent Twisted Retreat package. It is a brutal read. It is got some heavy, heavy, heavy topics. I would definitely check a lot of the trigger warnings, especially because it is inspired by real events. But I had commented on one of my more recent videos, I think the one that I did on my review of Hiding Lies, that said how much they enjoyed this book as well. So it jumped to the top of my TBR and I picked it up. And again, I knew nothing about Leigh Kenny previously, but this book had like a 4.4 rating on Goodreads. So I went in blind and I enjoyed it, I think. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to read the inside flap really quickly. Or I guess the back. So it says, in pursuit of peace and family ties, American tourist Megan goes on a road trip around Ireland. When she becomes stranded deep in the mountains, the Brogan family come to her rescue. But is it luck, or is Megan's nightmare just beginning? The Wicklow Mountains offer breathtaking beauty to all who venture in. Where nature abounds, where solitude beckons, where no one can hear you scream. Alright, so this book is very much akin to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Again, it is also very much inspired by the Vanishing Triangle in the Wicklow Mountains in Ireland. If you've never heard of that before, definitely look into it. This takes a lot of creative freedoms with those cases, primarily because those cases are massively unsolved. So it's a really interesting take on how that area and landscape in Ireland can allow for the crimes in this book to be committed. Very, very interesting spin, again, on that kind of cliche Texas Chainsaw Massacre family. However, unlike Anya Alborn's brother, where we really get to see kind of a humanized side and this like almost sympathetic angle of one of the family members, we get to see that kind of lens through one of their victims, which I think is interesting. There's a lot of humanizing of certain characters in this story who are the quote-unquote bad guy. I do not think it's as effective as Brother is. I think Brother is kind of the pinnacle of that style of writing, of making you really sympathize with the bad guy. And you pretty much kind of like know from the beginning that like Michael is in a bad situation, you know? Leigh Kenny does a really good job of kind of having similar themes and tones to this novel, where it still doesn't feel like a generic regurgitation of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre or the iterations that have followed since. I really, really liked Leigh Kenny's prose. I was really drawn into how she wrote. I don't necessarily know if I loved the flow of the story overall. I definitely thought it dragged a little bit in the beginning, and I have feelings on the ending, which I'm going to talk about. But her prose overall, I really, really loved. I definitely want to read more from Leigh Kenny. I thought she was able to handle certain extreme topics too in a tasteful manner where I understood what was happening and I understood the brutality of it, but she did not need to get graphic at all with it. There is a dog in this story, and I will say, this story aside, the story and life of the dog is a love letter to Leigh Kenny's real dog. Her dog did recently pass away, and she wrote that character as a memorial for that dog. And it does talk about how that dog passed away. So just in case you are worried about things like that, that is in there. It is not bad. It is not brutal. It is very peaceful. It is a dog who gets to live a really, truly well-loved life, even in the awful situation that all the other characters are in. So just be aware of that. There is a second dog. Nothing happens to the second dog at all. But as far as like writing the demise of a dog, I thought this one was done very, very, very tastefully. What I'm saying is not at all a spoiler, really. The dog, I think, is kind of just there so Leigh Kenny could have this moment to say goodbye to her own pet. My copy does have a really cute memorial page dedicated to her dog at the end with a photo. He's very cute. So just be aware of that, but there's a moment where somebody is mean to the dog. It's very, very brief, and the dog is very well defended. So I will say that as well. But yes, just be aware of that, but it's nothing brutal or really, really difficult to swallow in this story. However, I can't say the rest of the book goes that way. Humans, especially women, are not treated very well in this book, and that is kind of the purpose. So I was in between giving this a 4-star or a 3-star. I ended up giving it a 3-star rating. I will say that it is a very, very high 3-star rating, almost at a 4-star rating. And the 3-star rating comes for 2 major reasons versus the 4-star. The first major reason being that Megan starts off incredibly dumb. Like, ignoring every red flag in the book humanly possible. And the reason is, like, she was, like, blinded by a crush. And I don't buy that. I just do not buy that for Megan based on how she turns out in the end. Because there's kind of this, like, flip where she kind of goes from just being the victim to kind of being our female lead and heroine and, like, fighting back, which I think is important to talk about in the story, because this isn't just a story about brutalization and victimization of women. And that's why I think I like this story, even though it's a very, very heavy topic. I think taking somebody who is held captive by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre family and allowing them to have a strong fight in them is necessary for the type of story that this is. However, the way she is depicted at the very beginning, she ignores every single sign of danger for pages and pages and pages and pages. And it was driving me crazy. Because, like, 1 or 2 things that you write off, I'm like, cool. But, I mean, this girl is writing off everything. And I don't want to do spoilers in this because I do think that this book is worth reading. And there's like a big twist in the novel, which I think makes a lot of sense. I don't really want to talk about it here, too, because I also don't want to ruin the twist for you. I didn't see the twist coming, but I wouldn't say that it was a twist like the one in Gone to See the Riverman, where it made me fully change the way that I looked at this novel. And I feel like the way a lot of people have been talking about this book, that's how a lot of people felt with that twist. To me, I was just kind of like, that makes sense. That really makes sense. And it very believable for what's kind of happening, this kind of notion of how there's a lot of commentary in this book on Stockholm Syndrome. And I think Leigh Kenny does a really amazing job of showcasing Stockholm Syndrome in a variety of different ways, and how the negativity that surrounds you can basically raise you. And there's a lot of, like, nurture versus nature in this book. And I think the twist really adds to those stories and those ideas that Leigh Kenny is talking about, but it didn't knock my socks off. I was like, oh my god, right? Like, cool. And it did allow the story to continue further. But then we get to the ending. And the ending was kind of hopeful. It was kind of hopeful, and it felt kind of cliche. And I just, like, didn't love it. And then I read, like, the novelette that's featured after it. Now, I don't know if all copies have this or if just mine does. But at the end of my copy, I have a short story. It's like 30 pages long, called Quietly Through the Trees, which is considered a companion novelette. And it is a short story that involves major players in Hush My Darling, and adds a whole new tone to the end of Hush My Darling. And has a big reveal. That's not really a twist, but it, like, solidifies the answer that you're looking for that's left open-ended in Hush My Darling. and it made the ending of Hush My Darling feel cheap. Like, I felt like she should have either ended the story and that epilogue with this novelette, very much truncated, or not had the novelette at all and left the more hopeful ending. And I just don't understand the kind of differing viewpoints. It's like she didn't know which ending to choose. You know, like sometimes you get movies like The Descent, which has different endings. You have your happy ending and your sad ending. And this kind of felt like a choose your own adventure ending. Like, if you choose to keep reading, you are going to feel much different than if you just stopped reading with Hush My Darling. And so that kind of was really jarring to me. And I actually think I prefer the more elongated ending, because the final ending of Hush My Darling without the novelette, to me, just kind of felt very cliche. So I definitely think that she should have chosen one and stuck with one and found a way to better connect the two, because they do feel very, very, very disjointed. So that is where the 3 stars come from. However, again, I can't emphasize enough how much I enjoyed Leigh Kenny's prose. She did such a good job of making this, like, farmhouse seem at the same time so large, but also so enclosed. She did such a good job of really defining who all the various family members were and their different personalities, even though they're all kind of acting in very similar and depraved ways. And you really, I mean, you don't really feel bad for anybody in the Brogan family, but you do have these moments where you see, like, the light in their eyes, and I think that's one of the things that, like, makes Megan make a lot of her bad decisions. And I did appreciate how she did that. This is definitely a messed up story. My big question for you guys, though, if you have read this, or if you're going into reading this, is what is the purpose of the character Liam O'Keefe? Because he's kind of sprinkled throughout the story, but my big question is, and it's not answered in this novel at all, and I really, 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 really wish it was, because that to me would have been a super interesting twist. Is he working with the Brogan family or not? Because he seems to be, from the very, very beginning, the catalyst to multiple events. And I personally think he is. Again, completely unanswered in the story, and so this is just me kind of like throwing my ideas out there, but definitely let me know what you guys think, because I think he's involved. I think the whole, like, conclusion to his storyline was, like, strange and didn't really make sense to me. But there's definitely something going on there, like that, like, maybe Leigh Kenny is going to write more about this family and we'll get more about that character, or, like, that was a storyline that got cut out, but there's definitely some open-endedness with that storyline that I really wish it had more solid answers around. I think that would have been super, super cool. So, yeah. And I think the only other question I have that I was, like, kind of, like, wondering about is, like, you have Ma and you have Megan as, like, our 2 main females in the house, that were, like, kind of seeing their relationships, and I guess you have Lauren as well, but she's more of, like, an interlude character. But you have these characters and you're seeing their interactions with the various men. I just kind of felt like there should have been stories about more women and not just those 3. Like, just, like, the way that when you kind of understand how the household works, I just felt like more women should have had, like, their voices heard or their backstories told in this. And again, maybe it was like we just didn't have enough pages, or that was written and edited out. I don't know. I just felt like that was something that was kind of missing in the story as well. I think it would have been something interesting too, to, like, maybe in that novelette at the end could have, like, expanded upon that, but I don't know. I'm being really, really nitpicky. And I know it's a 3-star rating, and I kind of feel bad because it was so close to a 4-star reading, and given the topic and how messed up it was, like, I did really enjoy Leigh Kenny's prose, and I will absolutely pick up more from her. This is, like, borderline extreme horror. I would consider this, like, diet extreme horror. There are very extreme topics in it, but it's not graphic. And so it's extreme horror that I can handle, and I thought it was done very well, and I'm still thinking about everything that happened, and it's really disturbing and gross. But I think it had a very, very, very good point, and does depict very, very strong women. However, there is a plot hole, and it bothered me from the very, very beginning all the way to the end. We know that our main character, Megan, lost her dad. However, she does have a mom, a sister, or half-sister, and a stepdad. She's not super close to them, but she has them. They exist. She lived with them. But then the story, like, forgets that they existed. Like, just completely forgets that they're there because she's like, nobody will ever look for me, right? Like, nobody's gonna know I'm missing. Like, this is like a whole, like, pivotal plot point to this story. Is that she has nobody that would look for her and nobody back home. But it's like she has 3 people. She has 3 people. And I feel like that just, like, is a minor thing, but it becomes such a crucial part of, like, the latter half of the book. And it was driving me crazy because I'm like, but it's established that she has people. So minor plot hole. That just kind of bothered me a little bit, but nothing too crazy. Anyways, yeah, definitely check out Leigh Kenny's work if you're interested, if you are in to the more extreme side of horror, but you don't want to dive in headfirst like me. I would say this is a really good one. I'm really, really thrilled with a lot of the Twisted Retreat releases that I have received recently. So really stoked that one of my commenters was like, check this book out. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun read. Probably should be closer to a 4-star, but I just can't quite give myself, I just can't give it 4 stars. It's so close. It's so close, but no. It's a 3. It's a 3. It is very good, though, and I will read more from Leigh Kenny for sure. Anyhow, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I try to post twice a week, maybe 3 times in the near future. I'm trying. I'm getting to a place where I'm not as busy as I have been. And if you enjoyed these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and I will catch you on the next one. Mwah.